game-changing discussions on the big ideas that shape our thinking. This is One2One.
Sam Faleye is the founder and group CEO of Saglev Incorporated, Nigeria's first electric vehicle manufacturing company, pioneering clean mobility in West Africa. A doctor by training and health informatics researcher, he's a vocal advocate for sustainable transport in developing and emerging economies. Dr. Faleye, welcome to One2One.
Thanks, Dr. Shitta-Bey, for having me. It's a pleasure.
A real pleasure. Right, so you are chairman and CEO,
Saglev Incorporated.
Yes. Delaware
Incorporated, yes.
Electric vehicle company.
Yes.
Focused on distributing, assembling, and manufacturing electric vehicles for emerging markets.
Yes.
You oversee currently your Ikorodu assembly plant in Imota.
In Imota, Ikorodu.
Absolutely. The first plant, I believe, in sub-Saharan Africa dedicated solely to electric vehicle assembly.
Yes.
Wow, amazing. I happen to know, of course, as the whole world knows, that you trained originally as a medic. You're board certified in internal medicine.
Yes.
So I'd like to begin by asking you, who is Sam Faleye really, and how did you get into this?
Well, honestly, I'm just the guy that grew up in Mafuluku, Oshodi, got into university after a little debate, should I be an engineer or a doctor? Of course, my dad, in his own way, wisdom, settled it, and I became, a doctor, 91, University of Ilorin, the real UI. Well, but
Some might disagree.
Maybe a lot of people disagree, but it is what it is. But then I ended up in the United States with my family. My wife is also is a dentist, an orthodontist, University of Ibadan, the other UI. So she's a dentist, and we got to the US, where quickly I started understanding more of what medicine was all about. Started residency at Howard University. And I then started to figure out there's this other part of medicine that is called clinical informatics. It was new in '98 when I finished my residency, but quickly began to understand more about healthcare information technology. So I got into that, developed a telemedicine program at that time, and then ultimately ended up with a PhD studies at UTHS, University of Tennessee. Along the line, I just basically started getting more information about renewables, and that's how I got the EV bug after a friend of mine and I bought bought an EV, and it occurred to me this thing was going to change the world. I was so sure, and so.
It was a Tesla, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a Tesla. And it occurred to me that, oh my God, this thing is going to change the world. And luckily, that made me invest in Tesla at a very early stage. So that's how Saglev was born. Of course, if I stayed in the US and wanted to compete in that market, I'd be competing with Lucid and Tesla and GE. But it occurred to me nobody was paying attention to the emerging markets.
Yes.
And of course, the story in Africa is not just social consciousness and greenhouse gas reduction. It is very much economic viability and people making a living.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's how I got to this point. So 5 years ago is when we really started the work. Took us 3 years to build an assembly plant very quietly. People say you can't keep a secret in Nigeria, but we managed to quietly do that. And so that's, I think, who I am. And, all of this by way of 27 years in private practice in the United States. That's who I am.
So in EVs in Nigeria, I mean, obviously, yes, you told a bit of the story, but it's not exactly oil and gas, is it? And it's not FMCGs. How did you go about convincing investors, stakeholders?
Yes.
And what's the journey been like so far?
So the journey has been very interesting. When we started out, we actually made the choice not to continue working with VCs because, of course, the actual value of what an EV company in Nigeria is was not known, right? So we just went and started working with what we had.
Sure.
Now, this was a problem that was sort of automatically solved. If you remember, prior to, say, 2023, 1 liter of petrol in Nigeria would be about 180 naira a liter. In Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, you're talking the equivalent of 1,200 naira. Sure. So those economies were very serious about EVs. Yes. They still had all the problems we now have. But then, when the fuel subsidy was removed, right, Nigeria's economy was almost thrown into, as you remember, there was but again, at that point, internally, we had modeled that EVs would be viable right about 450 naira a liter. Well, it was already over 500, which told us, well, we were building an assembly plant in Ghana. We said, well, in the first place, this was the primary market, the biggest market. So we simply fast-tracked our plans. So in Nigeria. Now, going back, people do not realize how viable EVs are because we were buying very, very cheap gasoline, petrol. We didn't realize that. It's what we thought the price was.
Subsidy was a way of life.
Yes, it was our way of life. However, let me quickly point out a few data points that would drive the point home. So today, if you are a ride-hailing driver and you drive, say, a full-size, mid-size sedan for your business, you would spend 20 to 35,000 naira a day for petrol for your 180 to 200 kilometers you drive for that day. That's a lot of money. Now, if you're working 26 days a month and you're a full-time Uber driver, you simply cannot make a living because you have to make all that money, maintain your car, sure, and before you take any money home to your family. But if you're using an EV, it costs you no more than 5,000 naira. So the data is very, very stark, right?
5,000 naira.
5,000 naira.
Break that down.
Okay, let me break that down. So the cars that we would typically use for ride hailing are cars with a roughly 30 kilowatt hour battery. Now, if you live in Band A, Victoria Island, Ikoyi, you pay 225, right? So 225 times 30, you're talking 6,000-ish.
Yeah.
Now, we spent a lot of money actually paying Uber drivers collecting data for almost a year and a half.
I see.
So this is how we know this. And we know that the average driver doesn't drive more than 200 kilometers. That's this rare superhero Uber driver would do that. So that means your actual cost of power for that day is about 4,000 naira, no more than that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, the EV itself, there's no oil change. There's 50 to 60% less maintenance because you're talking 40 moving parts versus 4,000 internal combustion. Sure. The data is really stark. So that's where those numbers come from. By the time you add the cost of lower maintenance, power, you find out that if you bought a 15 million naira 15 million naira used car, or you bought an EV, By the 15th month, you spent the same amount of money.
Sure.
So the data is actually very stark. Now, worldwide, people already know that an internal combustion car is too expensive to use in ride-hailing. So to us, the message is very economic. Now, the reason you stay on the island now and call a Uber and it takes you forever is because so many Uber drivers have left the business. It's cost. It's just as simple as that. So it's an economic, and that is what is driving the adoption. We have well over 80 ride-hailing drivers waiting for EVs now. The problem is, how do we get financing for them? So now we're talking to the banks and making them understand this is a very viable business. This is what you have to do to make sure they don't comply. But I'm going to take you back real quick. The president of the African Development Bank at the AIF forum in Rabat, December 2024, said that it's unfortunate that the rest of the world don't realize that loan defaults are actually lowest in Africa.
In Africa.
But you would think the whole world, you think it's, so this is what we're telling the banks. Let me tell you, when you inject an EV into the life of, and I like to use those words, you inject an EV into the life of a ride-hailing driver now, that is his most valuable resource. These guys are not playing with this piece of equipment.
Absolutely.
They will pay, and our own model tells us that these drivers will make anywhere 120 to 150,000 naira. Because what people don't understand is a hardworking Uber driver, hardworking, can make 80 to 100,000 naira a day gross. The problem is,
that's revenue.
Yes, revenue. The problem is they're spending all this on a high maintenance cost of an internal combustion car, as well as spending it on gas. Even when they switch to a CNG vehicle, you find out that they're still driving an internal combustion engine car. So the cost of maintenance doesn't drop. Even if your fuel cost drops, you're still kind of in the same ship, in the same boat. And there is this rumor out there that electric vehicles are expensive. That is a situation that is unfortunate because it's not particularly true. If you assemble these vehicles here, have the right relationship with the OEM, do exactly what Saglev has done, by the way, you should be able to drop the cost of these vehicles in such a way that you take advantage of the tariff incentives by the government and the VAT incentives and pass that on to the customer. I can assure you that we've got electric vehicles that are very much at the same price point as the comparable internal combustion vehicle used. So this whole story of EVs are more expensive is not true. Now, that is part of what we want to dispel, because we just want people to go to our website and we have finally published prices. Just go look and compare. Now we are being approached by influencers that say, you know what, we want to educate people. We've seen it. I've ordered a car, but I want people to know. And so that's happening now. People are going to realize that, oh my God. So, but a lot of times it's just transferring the information, educating the public, and they'll get there.
Yeah. So there is, for us, what you're saying is that it's an economic argument, not so much a clean energy.
Yes, in Africa it is, because if you really consider the fact that look, climate change and greenhouse gases explosion really is primarily not Africa's fault.
Yeah.
Most of the greenhouse gas and was from Western development, but we are paying the price tremendously. I'll give you a quick one. Do you know at 56 years old, my baby brother has to tell me what season it is in Nigeria? I don't get it, because I tell my brother, when is Hamatan coming? He starts laughing. he starts laughing.
It's a different pattern.
It's a different pattern. This is stark climate change, most of which was not our fault,
Of course. Yeah.
but we are paying for it. So again, climate changes. However, in Africa, it turns out that there are economic benefits to electric vehicle technology. Now, electric vehicle technology is old technology, by the way. This is not new technology. It's just that it happens that, the time has come for the numbers to really add up such that people are now looking and say, oh my God, that's a better option because, people are tired of paying that cost for petrol. It's time, and that time just came. It's just time for people to realize that.
Right. So I get it. One of the issues, of course, with failing to assemble in this country is that we've given up an entire value chain that would lead up to that sort of benefit. We have.
Yeah.
Indeed. However, I'd like to ask you a pointed question at this point. Of course, EVs are the future, but we are still speaking in the context of an environment in which the power supply is epileptic. And we know, of course, that there's a huge benefit to be had from encouraging Uber drivers, for example, to convert. But if there is an epileptic power supply, how do they get around this? How do we get around this as a community?
Okay, so this is probably the number one question. And thinking about it, I am a little surprised, but again, this is part of educating people. So I'll drop a few data points. Sometimes you want to be data driven. So when I first approached Dongfeng, they said, hey, we've been in Nigeria for 35 years. Dongfeng just supplied 4,000 trucks to Dangote, right? They've been here. They said, look, bro, they don't have electricity in Nigeria. It took me 8 visits to China to convince them, 8 in 1 year. But the truth is that 50% of Nigeria's urban dwelling population has access to a minimum of 15 hours of electricity, not daily, but weekly. Now let's go back and look at the basic. Our smallest, lowest capacity electric vehicle has a range of 320 kilometers on a single charge, which it does in alternating current 4 hours. 320. It'll charge 70% of that 320 in 2 hours. This is just something unique to battery technology. The fuller the battery is, the harder it is to charge. Okay. This is why we tell people you don't have to charge your car at 100% every day. But this is another thing people need to understand. Now, that means that vehicle, let's say it's for an Uber driver, example. That vehicle can go from Shangotedo in Lekki area to Oshodi 10 times or 5 return trips on that one charge and still have 70 kilometers left. So that's one part of the story. Now, assuming, say, you worked in a bank, maybe you drive, you would have to be a special person to drive more than 60 kilometers a day.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's say you drove 60 kilometers a day. You will still not have to charge that vehicle more than once a week.
A week, yeah.
It's just math.
Yes.
So when we first started this, people assume that it's like your phone. Because, I want to go out, I'm going to be out all night, so let me quickly charge my phone. No, a car is a totally different situation. So people don't realize just how much range, and that is our smallest product. We've got 500, 700 kilometers. Now we've got something called extended range EVs that allow you to go 1,200, 1,000 kilometers on a charge, along with a small amount of, well, 50 liters of petrol in a generator. These are not hybrids, because all the generator does is just charging that battery. These are fully electric vehicles that have a range extender. Now, how many people actually travel more than 400 kilometers more than once a month? You'd be surprised. People go for Ileya, Easter, Christmas to their hometown.
Periodically.
Okay, so why do you need a car that has a range of more than 500 kilometers? So it's when you start getting into this discussion that people start realizing, oh my God. So I tell people that 50% of Nigeria's urban dwelling population are potentially electric vehicle customers. Okay, let that sink in. If you say that Nigeria's urban dwelling population is 40 to 50 million, let's say, okay, let's say we capture 10% of that market. That's 4 million.
5 million. Yeah.
5 million. Let's say it took us 5 years to hit that 10%, right? So you're talking 2% per annum. Do you know that Saglev cannot meet Nigeria's demand for electric vehicles?
Sure.
So people listen to me. All I'm saying is, guys, join us. Let's build an electric vehicle infrastructure, and let's assemble these cars. Let's not go out and go import cars. This is the future. These EVs, whether you like it or not, the data is already stock. We already have vehicles where, in fact, our plan is to make it impossible for you to make that decision to buy an internal combustion vehicle right now. If the government continues to leave the incentives, this will absolutely happen. But I tell people that you need to get in, because the government is not going to keep the zero tariffs forever. This is government choosing to do it this way because we don't have a mature tax system. In the United States, you can buy an EV and claim $7,500 in your taxes.
Straight away. Yeah.
It's a little more difficult because, we don't even know how many taxpayers are there in Nigeria. So when you look at data, this is why, people will say, as a clinical informatician, all you deal with is data. But data is very important.
It's power, isn't it?
It's power. Because if you want to be data-driven, data doesn't lie. Now, if you make the wrong conclusion with the right data, guess whose fault it is? Your fault. Yes. You came to the wrong conclusion. Yeah, but this is the data. This is what we're looking at, is how many Nigerians can literally are already electric vehicle customers. It's actually stark.
Yeah, so the evidence is there, it's stark, the capacity is there. Yeah. Whether or not you reckon with an epileptic car supply or even traffic jams, which might be other argument that people may make. Yeah. But the capacity certainly is there. Okay.
Capacity is there. Nigerians will tell me, how come we don't charge the vehicles with only solar power? Right. And the same message is, I'm like, listen, you want to tell time, right? You want to produce power cheaper and drive this EV, right? Well, why do you have to charge it with solar? Because you're talking, batteries are very expensive. It's a matter of, if you're driving a bus, for instance, that bus, pretty much the time you need that bus is the best time you could charge it. So that means you have to trap that energy during the day and store it. Well, it turns out the critical thing you need in charging from solar is battery storage. Well, guess what? Battery storage is very expensive. You're talking anywhere, maybe in China, $120 per kilowatt. In North America, $300 to $400 per kilowatt. So which means 100 kilowatt of battery storage is going to cost you somewhere around $30,000. Okay, so battery storage is the game changer.
Of course.
So again, I tell people, look, okay, why don't you buy a generator, burn 15 liters of fuel for just 1 hour, charge your bus. Because that bus is suddenly going to burn a whole lot more, probably 10 times more petrol for the 300 kilometers it's going to drive that day.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, we just need to talk about this enough, think about it openly enough for people to grasp.
Educate the population.
Yeah, it's just if you are a state governor and you have a public mass transit that has, say, 300 buses. Well, if they are diesel buses, you're pretty much burning,
Of course.
300 generators, a 150 kVA generator per bus, right? Well, you can buy 10 generators, charge your buses at night, and then use that.
Run for free during the day.
Yes. So this is the power of electric mobility.
Of course. We spoke earlier about the fact that the argument here is economic. We are, and I might be putting words in your mouth here, we're not so concerned about the clean energy and the climate change aspect of things. And yes, of course, the West has polluted unrepentantly in the past, and it's their fault, as we agreed. But it still is. The environment still is our responsibility. Do you feel that you have a responsibility to push that agenda as well?
And perhaps maybe a poor choice of words, because no, we should be concerned. All I'm saying is that the primary argument for us is economic.
Economic, yes.
But think about this. And this is another thing I was just telling the minister who came. I said, ma'am, this is our report card. If this factory hits its target, 2,500 as it is installed a year for 5 years, we're talking. We avoid the use of 24 million liters of petrol in 5 years. The equivalent of carbon capture of 1 million trees. Okay? Now it starts to really hit home.
Sure.
The data is tremendous. I'm not saying that, all I'm saying is that, when you say a side effect, if you give a chemotherapy and it kills the cancer, but then gives the person a neuropathy, you ask the patient, well, they say, sir, I'll deal with my neuropathy, but I'm okay that okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the truth is that the economic is there.
Is primary.
But yes, now, the truth is that Africa has an opportunity to develop and industrialize in a climate conscious manner.
True.
Otherwise, we'll be in the same trouble that the West. And guess what? You see South Pacific islands that are now disappearing because of that. Problem is only going to get worse. Now, remember though, we also have a business capital of the world that is literally almost underwater. Lagos has a water and drainage problem.
Correct.
So we want to industrialize in such a way that we are climate conscious. So certainly a poor choice of words there. Yeah, it is important. All I'm saying is that right now, that economic argument is very, very, very poignant. It's just
imperative.
Yeah. So certainly, certainly the climate part of it is very now, and it also turns out that renewable sources of energy are more reproducible, more reliable, and more cost effective. Think about it. In Nigeria today, our actual installed power generation is somewhere around 5,000. The electrical engineers can correct me, but our actual use is somewhere in the 18 mega. The delta is occupied by renewables.
Yes, it is.
And the fact that most Nigerians are also NEPA unto themselves, right? They are power generators.
Self-generation, yeah.
And today, The people in companies, solar companies like Energy, they'll tell you that if you are not powering your business with solar now, you are making a huge mistake.
Not sustainable.
Because it's more sustainable, it's more reproducible, it's more reliable. And think about it. You have to help the government. This whole thing, as government didn't do this. Listen, let the government do the best in terms of industrializing the country with CNG and figure out how to distribute the 5,000, but help them out by not being an additional drain. Provide your own power. It's okay. It's a reliable and reasonable argument to make. That makes it possible for government to say, okay, Jakarta Steel Company, industrialize, use gas, whatever power, put it in, whatever, say, okay, schools, we're going to power our schools. Say agriculture. Okay, all I'm saying is that it makes sense.
Yes.
You know, it's not everything that the government has to do for you.
Sure.
You know, at some point, we're going to have to, you know, if we've been doing, anyway, the argument of you know, I'm not a politician, but all I'm telling Nigerians is that, trust me, the government is just not going to do everything for us. We're going to have to.
Destiny into your own hands.
It's in your own hands. Yeah. You know, so that belief has to change. Yeah.
All right, so Dr. Faleye, I'm glad to see that your climate change credentials are still intact.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely, yeah.
So you alluded to this earlier. I mean, recently you've had a visit from the outgoing president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, as well as the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Duwale.
Yes.
Both paid a visit to your plant in Lagos, and that very significant, actually, I think.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you, what signal would you hope that sort of presence, that visit, would send to the country, to consumers, to would-be clients, stakeholders, investors?
I think those visits were very pivotal. They represent validation on our part. They represent a period when we said, well, we've been doing this quietly, but now we needed to let the government, and as soon as things were ready, they immediately said, okay, Nigeria needs to see this. So it was very important for them to showcase that, look, somebody is doing this, therefore, clearly it's possible. It was also a signal to let the country know that this even exists. Can you imagine if 4 or 5 years ago, some guy from somewhere in the US showed up and your minister says, hey, in 3 to 5 years, I'm going to be assembling 16 different electric vehicle cars in Nigeria. You'd be,
So go back to Delaware.
Say, you know, go back to Delaware. So we chose to do this and then go back. But also have to be fair to the minister because our primary agency that regulates automotive manufacturing is the NADDC. It's right a parastatal under her. So without the NADDC, we would never have been able to do this from 5 years ago. So it's not like she woke up one day and said, okay, now, no. They've been involved. They've been helping us. They've been encouraging. They've been inspecting us. By the way, we are a recognized manufacturer in Nigeria. They gave us that certificate along with the federal ministry. So it was important for them to also show the government. I tell people, you can't criticize government just because you feel like. Once in a while, the government will do things right. And as a citizen, you need to recognize it and encourage them to do more things right. This is something positive that the NADDC has done. They didn't say, hey, you from, get lost. They didn't do that. They encouraged us. They welcomed us. They told us, hey, this is the policy. This is what you need. We sought advice. They inspected us. They did everything they were supposed to do. And as a result, we came out on the other end successful, right? That is a positive. So again, that was pivotal, and it's pivotal to showcase that this is possible. You know, I think we've been through such a rough patch as an economy, as a country, that there's a lot of losing hopelessness. But you can choose to look at the positives or look at the negatives. And the negatives will only depress you and make you less successful. So pick up the positives and look at them. Yeah. So that's what I think. Now, as far as Dr. Adesina, Dr. Adesina has been, of course, a supporter of Africa. Of course. Everything he's done in his career is about boosting Africa. We met, and he said, okay, I like what you're doing, and before my term is over, I will visit that assembly plant, because this is important. Because we want to show that good things are happening. And that's it. He kept his promise. He came, and the AFDB is working to see, okay, what can we do to make sure these types of successes happen in a reproducible manner. So I've got to, look, validation is one thing, but also showing this as an example for what is positive, because there is an industrialist somewhere trying to make orange juice. There is an industrialist somewhere trying to can mackerel. There is somebody trying to farm. They can see these things and say, oh, I can do that. I don't have to do it in EV. I can do it in farming. I can do it in fashion. I can do it in manufacturing. I can farm palm oil and export. The export market. And I always remind people, my other area of interest is in agriculture, because believe it or not, Africa is the bread basket of the world. This is the only part of the world where you can reliably farm year-round, different crops. The earth here is naturally fertile. It has not been abused. It's very fresh. So again, Africa is the bread basket of the world, whether you like it or not. Sure. And again, the other thing I want to remind people is, if you want to be in business and you're not going to be satisfied with the 3-5% growth per annum, come to Africa. This is where you're going to find the fastest growing middle class. Lagos is virtually not recognizable for me, because in 1991, I don't see this many restaurants. I don't see this many social. I don't even see tourism as anything that happened in 91. So, again, those are some of the lessons I've picked up.
Okay, good. I'd like to press in on the point. Of course, very important to push the message about EVs. We've talked a lot in this conversation about why we should. Lagos, of course, as you've mentioned, has a growing middle class, but it also has quite an impoverished underclass. How do you feel that, in your position, with all of the knowledge you have about the industry, how can we make EVs more affordable for the average person? Currently, it may well be out of reach, but how do we go about solving that problem so they derive all of these benefits we've been talking about so far?
So you've asked a very tough question, but a few things come to mind. The first thing is that the EV itself is an opportunity to employ people. So there's that opportunity. But when I think about the EV, I like to think of the EV ecosystem, because the electric vehicle itself is probably 20% of that. So here we go. The EV, you need people who are going to charge EVs. That means you need to train people who are going to install
course. Yeah.
You need people who are going to man the charging stations. You need people who are going to teach other people how to install that, how to even manufacture. So now you're going into education. On top of this, you now have entrepreneurs who are going to start charging centers. Do you know that today one of the fastest growing businesses in our ecosystem is actually electric charging? That already tells you that people understand where things are going. It's electric mobility. Today, the fastest growing part of our ecosystem is in two-wheelers and three-wheelers. We just as a company have chosen to manufacture the battery electric vehicle for four-wheeled cars.
Yeah. You're talking about the Kekena Pets.
Yes, that's the huge, because that is so easy to implement, it's so reproducible, and it's so cost effective. Now think about how that is going to influence produce transportation in the rural areas. A keke, or it can, you haven't even touched the manufacturing of those kekes. And so again, I like to talk about this in terms of the EV ecosystem. It turns out that electric vehicle ecosystem is actually good for the economy and good for jobs. So the truth is that how can you move people higher in terms of their socioeconomic status is jobs, and give them ability to afford more. The EV ecosystem, just by default, brings all that because there are jobs.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. Now, think about it. Look at these things they call koropes, these small little cars. Can you imagine if you're able to there is a technology called low velocity EVs. These are electric vehicles that fall in the place between the EVs and, the kekes. Therefore, their vehicles lower. Now, in the first place, why would you be in Lagos and be dreaming of going more than 70 kilometers an hour? Right? You're not going to go faster than that anyway. So can you imagine if you're able to start converting those koropes to a low velocity EV?
I know of a company that's focusing on
Exactly.
that. Exactly. And to me, that's a way of instantly democratizing the uptake of EVs.
Yes.
Why isn't Saglev thinking about that?
Well, the truth is that, we really started doing this. We felt like our key competency was in the actual cars. First of all, before we even thought about this, there were people who were already in Africa generally, in the 2- and 3-wheeler space. You've heard of Spyro, Max E. Those guys already have that area, and they were doing a good job. So there was no sense in us reproducing. That is one arm. But at the end of the day, there is 750,000 used cars coming into this country every year. Sure. And we just felt, well, listen, this is the difficult part. What we do is the hardest part, because it's technically you need a partner that would back you up. It's much more expensive to do what we're doing. So we just thought, okay, look, everybody can attack the 2- and 3-wheeler. This is our area, and we're going to attack it. Of course, it came with more doubt because people said, you know how much money it's going to cost you. But we just kept until we arrived at where we are today. So that's just it, Sure. But there are people who are doing a fantastic job in the 2 and 3, EMVC. It's another company that comes to mind, doing a fantastic job. So, again, it's just what we thought was our key competency. Sure. Is the actual 4-wheeler battery electric vehicle space. Yeah.
And I like the fact that you speak in terms of the EV ecosystem. And no doubt, so you've made the point that it's potentially a boost for the economy if we can get that right. And we're already beginning to talk about the various sections that connect into it. You may not be focused on the Korokways and core, but there are those who do it. But you're doing the heavy lifting on the four-wheeler.
In a sense,
In a sense, I get that. But what that does, of course, is that it puts you in the perfect position to advocate on behalf of this industry, this move, in terms of both, and you've made these points, the economic argument as well as the climate change argument. So will you be at COP30 in Brazil in that case, or is it not so much of an issue?
The truth is, I have not made that decision about COP30 because the truth is that, I am not I just prefer to do rather than to speak. Those four are for a lot of speaking, and I get bored. I was at COP28, but I don't think that was so long and so boring. But having said that, though, unbeknownst to most people, there is a Electric Mobility Promoters Association of Nigeria, and we all advocate together. There are bodies that so these organizations of advocating together are already being formed because we realize that we have to co-promote this industry together. We will always advocate. The thing that strikes me, though, is this is not a case that needs a lot of work. It's just you need to draw people's attention to it. Most people have heard of these things. Most people today have heard, why is an EV less expensive to maintain? People are hearing these things. It's just a matter of time.
Yes.
Within the last 6 months, we've heard, and by the way, we have people who are ordering cars. So,
of course,
so again, I think it's just a matter of time. It's a blessing to come from medicine and contribute in another. So again, I think it's just a matter of time. The good thing is, the EV ecosystem affects a lot of other ecosystems. Listen.
Of course.
We're making progress. That's all I can say. And, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
The thing that keeps Rome there today is that Rome kept building. They didn't stop. Absolutely. They just kept, So as a result, so again, we're building. The ecosystem is there. Whatever challenges and problems we see along the way, we address them conscientiously, ethically, openly. But again, look, this is already a place where the whole world is at.
Correct.
It's not that there's nothing
new about it.
No, in fact, there's nothing revolutionary about this at all. Because if you go on Google will tell you exactly how to make an EV. There's nothing new about this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we are talking about the wider economy, after all. So I'd like to press in and talk a bit more about you, Dr. Sam Faleye.
Yes.
You function in 3 distinct areas. Healthcare.
Yeah.
You're trained medic, board certified in internal medicine. Real estate. You are, of course, I found out, a farmer as well.
a prospective
farmer. Okay, and now EV manufacturing. Can you talk about how perhaps you learned to cultivate the synergies between all 3 and what it has required of you in terms of training and character in order to function successfully across all of these and to make them all run successfully for the benefit of the economy and yourself?
Well, I think one has to remain inquisitive. You have to want to learn. I don't know of many doctors that are not like that, which you well know, because if you're not willing to learn in medicine, you're going to die off, right? You'll be totally useless to patient because there's new information, new studies that are disproving what we thought or proving or telling us what's new. So being inquisitive is very, very, very critical. But then in terms of just farming, I think I've always had this idea that agriculture was an area that Nigeria neglected for petroleum. I'm not sure how much, and I've read this, how much petroleum was really a blessing for Nigeria. That argument is still, is still being made. But I was in thinking about this and in just really starting to be in Africa more over the last 5 years, I met a fantastic man, Dr. Bello, who is the chairman of Shinebridge Global. Dr. Bello is one of the top specialists in starch worldwide. This is a man who has a doctorate degree from I think it's Texas A&M, stand to be corrected, who has worked for the top food companies in the United States, and is back here now. I called him up, emailed him. I'm like, I see you, talking about agriculture. Tell me more about this. And that's how I made the connection with him. What he's thinking about doing is using cassava starch as a replacement for corn and potato starch worldwide. And this, it turns out, is a very critical strategy because Nigeria is probably the top cassava producer worldwide. Well, in talking to him, I'm like, well, Dr. Bello, I'm really thinking about investing in agriculture, but I don't know how to do this. He said, okay, son, relax, we'll bring you along. So as a result, I basically became a shareholder of sorts, invested with them. And there's a lot going on in that realm. So what I'm doing is not because I know anything about farming, it's just because I had the interest. I said, well, I want to farm, I want to do poultry, which I'm already doing a piggery and doing. Now, think about it, I'm a doctor. In my mind, I may not be able to, but at least I may understand one or two things about how to keep chicken alive or how to keep. So that's what that is. Now, as far as the technology part, we've talked about that. But how do all these things tie together? One of the biggest challenges in farming is logistics. We were talking about this earlier. Look, if you spend all of the farmers' efforts and all of their savings cultivating crops, that 50% of that output is going to rot on the farm because he can't move it from there to market. Big problem.
That's a fact, by the way.
Yes. So by developing cold chain technology and logistics, it's tremendous. And I believe, there's a lot happening in the underbelly of Nigeria's economy. For those who are abroad, I tell you, if you are not paying attention in sub-Saharan Africa right now, you're making a big mistake because there's cold chain technology. When companies who are doing cold chain in Europe, in East Africa successfully start moving into Nigeria, they see something. They see something. So sometimes, just following the money kind of answers the question. Yeah. Because, listen, cold chain technology and logistics, now in my mind, I'm like, okay. So how can I cut the cost of power for moving goods from the farm to the market? E-mobility. We already have products that are EV trucks that do this brilliantly. So in my mind, again, I say that, listen, we believe that with the advent of CNG, Nigeria has an opportunity to rapidly develop and industrialize our economy and maybe provide electricity by which we move around with e-mobility. This can be done. I can, believe me. And when I ask people, people are having a hard time right now economically, but I sense that people understand that there is a growing groundswell of we're gonna get it right this time, and that is what people are beginning to tell me. That listen, things appear to be getting better. You're not feeling it, but you are seeing opportunity. When you're a young person and somebody tells you, listen, I can invest ₦1 million if you're interested in going to do fish farming. Okay, I see that all day long. Go to YouTube. You see people, this is a segment that I love to go to on social media. People are farming.
Yeah.
So if you look carefully, things are happening. And so it's very hopeful. So this is how I tie all these things together. The EV part is, just an interest that, and it started occurring to me. And I have always said, why do people in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, in China, why do they deserve EV technology? Does that mean we don't? Yes, we do. If these are gonna bring benefits to them, then we deserve those benefits too. It's just a very straightforward argument.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been a most exhilarating conversation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fantastic.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.